Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September 18th, 23 regular meeting of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I will call the meeting to order and ask Commissioner Brooks Matthews to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father, we do thank you this day. We thank you for this opportunity we have to come and discuss the business of our county tonight, Father. We thank you for those in attendance. We thank you for their willingness to come and participate in this process tonight. We ask that you would be with us as we discuss, that you would guide our discussions, that you'd give us wisdom, Father. We ask that you continue to bless us in our county, state, and nation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. All right, well, welcome, everybody. Good evening. And we seem to have a full house here today, so we'll go ahead and get started. I will consider any additions and deletions to the published agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second in order to approve the published agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously, Madam Clerk. Do we hear a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously as well, Madam Clerk. This time, I will now open the floor for public comment period. The period consists of 30 minutes. Each presenter will have 3 minutes in order to speak. Now, I did have a sign-up sheet here in the back, and I know that we have a couple public inputs this evening. Is everybody that signed up on this sheet in the back speaking for the public comment period, not one of the inputs as far as the opioid or the transportation? Okay, well, good deal. We'll go ahead and get started. First on the list, I have Miss Elizabeth Longman.
Good evening, everyone. Wanted to come and raise a little bit of awareness of the alarm bell that the Board of Education has raised. I think Mr. Matthews was in and we heard the status of education in Harnett County. You cannot expect to train a workforce when you can't get them to the point where they'll be able to understand and comprehend and do the training. With the schools coming in at D's and F's, I mean, they were excited they improved from an F to a D, an F to a D, and there was cause for celebration. The schools have put things in place for the children to take advantage of, but they need help. It is the real state of Harnett County is reflected in how those schools are doing. And I do not know how this commission can partner up with the Board of Education. They raised the alarm. They raised the alarm as clear as day. We have no one to blame but ourselves. If these commissioners can organize, grandparents to go help and read with these children, to do their homework, somebody needs to show up for these young citizens and future leaders of America. They will not be able to read or write a sentence or fill out an application or write a book or do science research. They will not have that capacity by the time they finish school. And this is how China and India and Philippines and everybody else takes the jobs that could have been high paying and local, because we sat and did nothing. Once again, when the school system raised the alarm, our children are in trouble. I hope we pay attention.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I have Mr. Alan Longman.
It's Mr. Alan Longman, 234 Hamilton Road, Bond Level. Reason for my talking is an extension of what happened in the Board of Education. I find it very difficult to understand the statistics that are being used are very questionable. The figures were said to be so good and were improper. Whether they used the state system, it is definitely not the right system of statistics to use. Why? You have 40,000 families coming in the next 5 years, over the past 5 years, and these kids are entered into the school system are from other states that have better education. And you're taking credit for the teachers of other areas as to why your statistics are the way they are now. No, they came, most of them in the lower grades, came from other places to start businesses and jobs here, especially high tech and software. These people have high IQs, come from a strong background, and come from other states that have much better education, and is reflected on your statistics that you're reading. It did not come from the people who are already here. It came from people from the outside coming into the system, and a large number, and increasing your statistical data from that what was here before. So we don't really know how the teachers affected the people of Harnett County students. In fact, it's so low and barely moved at all, even though you have statistically a large number of people from outside that came here. And therefore, the figures should be much higher than what they are. So the only conclusion that you could possibly make is that the statistics are not good enough, or the fact that things are worse than you have calculated them to be. The other thing is the problem with teachers, why you can't compete. How can a state like Texas, who has a lousy education system, can take away the best, the cream of North Carolina's teachers? In fact, they care more about teaching and teaching their students than you do. The legislature has tied the hands of people to compensate the teachers properly. And because the legislation has been passed in the Senate, in the legislature, that prevents you from actually taking care of the problem by paying people more money and be competitive with everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next I have Mr. Jeremy Bradford.
So I just want to clarify, are we commenting on the opioid task force now, or do you want us to wait on that?
You can comment at the time that we open that input session
Okay,
if you
then
would
you-
like, but you can also speak now as well. if you want
I
to
will
use your 3
speak now
minutes.
then.
And
All
I'll
right,
let
so-
you go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Melissa Bradford, 137 Heather Spring Way, Spring Lake, Western Harnett side. I just want to talk about that opioid task force. One, I think it's amazing what Harnett County is doing. My son was killed 16 months ago from fentanyl, graduated from Western Harnett High School. And I just want to talk about 3 things from the SOLVE approach. So goal number 1, talking about preventing harmful substance abuse, targeting support at-risk youth and families. I will tell you, it has to be bigger than at-risk youth and families. My son wouldn't have fit that stereotype. He wouldn't have fit in that, and so he wouldn't have been targeted with that education. So to challenge us to broaden that scope. And leverage our peer support networks and community advocacy by developing a platform for local organizations to connect and be tied into this network. I see that you have some, but we're definitely missing a huge number of organizations and people who are trying to spread the message about substance abuse in our community. When we talk about support, treatment, and recovery, I would say that we also need to look at mental health resources. I did see it a little bit under goal number 1, but especially for our youth and young adults, we know there's a direct tie for mental health to substance abuse use. And with the opioid crisis, we can't risk our youth and our teens and our college students going out and using because we haven't given them resources for mental health. Last thing I want to talk about is naloxone. I think it's awesome that we're talking about universal access, but we have to remember that just because we make it over the counter, that doesn't give it universal access. cost is a huge factor. And when right now under insurance, I can go and get it for $12 with my copay, but when it becomes over the counter, it's going to cost me $45 or more. That's not universal access. We've got to partner with our nonprofits and our organizations and use the laws that are out there that allow those organizations to distribute and get it to the grassroots, to the kids and the young adults and the people who need it. They're invested in the community. Let them do the hard work. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jeremy Bradford, would you like 3 minutes as well now?
Good evening. I'm Jeremy Bradford. I'm reside at the same location at 137 Heather Spring Way, Spring Lake, Harnett County side. I would just like to add, as we talk, and it just like to tell the committee, just remember as you talk about, I think it's goal 3, which is harm reduction, and you go into talking about universal access to Narcan, and then just remembering back to to trying to get rid of the stigma. I would ask that we don't do like some other cities have done, and the only place to get Narcan that's easily accessible is, at the jail as they're leaving the detention center in a vending machine. There's a lot of other, as Ms. Bradford alluded to, there are a lot of people that this is affecting, and it doesn't matter your economic background. It doesn't matter how you raised religiously. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. This opioid epidemic that we're having, specifically fentanyl, does not discriminate at all. And unfortunately, I'm here to be able to tell you about that, and we can speak on it firsthand. The other thing that I would ask is that the Harnett County, I know in Q3 of 24, you're looking at implementing schools and students at risk and harmful substance, having those conversations. I would just ask that we canvass Harnett County because there are a lot of us that have been affected that can actually speak to this firsthand and can bring a lot to that conversation and put a face like the faces over here to this problem, because this is a problem that affects everybody. And here in North Carolina, unfortunately, we're leading in this department. We're 6th in the nation for fentanyl overdose poisoning deaths, and that's something that's got to change. And I believe it can start right here in Harnett County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jerry Rivas.
Yeah, Jerry Rivas, 364 Twin Palms Road, Sanford. We could start stopping the opioid crisis by having the buffoons in Washington, D.C. close the borders. But what I wanted to talk about, last meeting, I kind of lost my temper. And after the meeting, Matt Nickel came out and talked to me out in the parking lot. And if y'all are offended by what I say, don't send Matt Nickel out there to talk to me, okay? We're acquaintances. He's not my daddy. I don't answer to Matt Nickel. And our head buffoon over in the sheriff's department, Wayne Coates, he goes to the Dun Daily Record when he addresses the Kevin Latart, the killer deputy that murdered Brian and Pat Finch back in March. And he made the statement, "My deputy is innocent until proven guilty." Unlike what some of my political opponents would have you believe. This is the same man who, when I was accused of a crime 15 months ago, pulled my concealed carry permit for over a year. No trial, no hearing, no reading of the rights, just pull my concealed carry permit. Wasn't I innocent until proven guilty? Does that standard not bear out for the people? Only his deputies? He must have hated it last Thursday when I took the order over there that I was found not guilty. I hope it left a bad taste in his mouth. I hope he choked on it. But this whole opioid crisis, this whole thing, as long as there's supply and demand, you're never going to do anything about this. We've had a war on drugs in the United States for 50 years. What has changed? Every year it gets worse. The drugs get stronger. more powerful. Yeah, I've been sober since July 1st, 1987. But I've heard stories about how potent the marijuana is nowadays. And where are we on that war on drugs? Hell, we're getting ready to legalize it right here in North Carolina. It's legal in a whole bunch of states. There's never going to be an end to this without you stop the flow across the border. I have a friend in South Carolina who's an ICE agent, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. When he was in Texas, it was crazy. They wouldn't even file federal charges on guys unless they caught them with 200 pounds or more. They referred him to the state. Now, can you imagine catching somebody with 150 pounds of fentanyl and not even charge them on a federal level? The war on drugs has been lost. And that just like Wayne's got cars over there that says crime prevention. I wish somebody would tell me one crime that those knobheads have prevented in the last 10 years. Just one. I'll wait. That's what I thought. But I'm not done yet. I have time remaining, so now I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Ms. Catherine Haymore.
Catherine Haymore, 200 Down Home Lane, Sanford. My problem is I've been taking oxycodone for 30 years and I haven't killed myself yet. It's getting harder and harder to get because the drugstores don't get it on time. I'm angry because it seems like everyone is trying to legislate against people who actually need the drug. And my last prescription, I waited over a week to get it. Would they back it up? No. The date? No. You can't go from one Walgreens to the other Walgreens and get it because they're not allowed to give it to you even though they're both Walgreens. I don't understand why there are people lacing the good drugs with the bad drugs, and I don't know why, because I don't know why they don't just put a label on a bottle of fentanyl and then everybody would know, don't take it. It's bad. If you've lived with 30 years of pain and there's nothing you can take except an opioid. I actually had a doctor take me off Percocet because he said the Tylenol is bad for you. So he put me on the Oxy just straight. The Tylenol was going to fry my liver. The Aleve, which is marginal effective, will tear up my stomach. The Oxy doesn't do anything but relieve my pain. No bad side effects. And yet, I'm slowly being legislated against. And I'm really upset about it. I may have another 10 years to live. If I can't get my medicine, I may have another week to live because I won't live without it. Try it. Try living in pain for 30 years.
Thank you, ma'am. Suzanne and Bill Burkhart.
Hi, Susan Burkhardt, 2128 Rolls Church Road, Angier. My first time ever coming, so I thank you all for having us. And this is a very important subject. It needs to be recognized. We need to be included in what you people are doing for the community, which is excellent. But you need people that lived it, who walked in those shoes to be next to you. We need to be a partner. We can't have just the law enforcement and then us. We need to partner with these people to help you, to spread the word. I gave you all a visual that I created so you could see, and I think that's another part. You could talk kids to you're blue in the face, and you know as well as I do, once they get to a certain point, they're not listening anymore. Just like adults. I mean, we're all human. But if you show visuals, I think that has a good connection to it. The hole by Abraham Lincoln's nose that I had drilled is 50 times greater more than was in my granddaughter's system. My granddaughter, my story's a little different. She wasn't an addict. She just had a baby, bought a Percocet. She did wrong. Yes, she knows better, or she knew better. We taught them better. But she bought a Percocet from a trusted friend that was 5.39 nanograms of fentanyl, which you can't see or smell. So that's your other problem in the school systems. It's not like back in the 60s where everybody was smoking pot and you can find the person because you can smell it on the person and trace it. Fentanyl has no smell. There's no odor. There's nothing. We just lost a 1-year-old boy in New York City this past weekend. Picked up something at the daycare and it had fentanyl on it, and he died. We've lost 100,000 people from 2021, the end of 2021. 100,000 souls that didn't ask to die. Whether they were trying to help with their pain, whatever, they didn't want to die, but they did. So we must stop it. It's coming in from China. I'm not a smart person. We all know it's coming from China. We need to stop it. I don't have all the answers, but I can help you. Involve us. Be our partners. And the stigma, when the Harnett County detectives came to the house, the stigma right away was, she's an addict. Wasn't the case. So that, and you get treated like that. And it shouldn't be that way when you're dealing with everything else. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Ma'am. Sir, would you like to speak as well right now? All right, at this time, I will now close the floor for public comment period. We'll move on to a public hearing to allow citizens an opportunity to comment on the transportation needs and the proposed 5311 Community Transportation Program application for FY25. Mr. Blevins, you want to kick us off, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a little background before we get started. This is required for the application for fiscal year 25. Again, next year, funding. So every year we go through a public hearing and ask for public comment. So a little bit of background is that the funding is for the Community Transportation Program, the CTP as it's called, and we want to make sure that when we're hearing comments that we're taking down notes and trying to figure out a way if somebody needs some additional, any way we can help with that. So that's the whole purpose of it. In this particular case, the total grant application is going to be $749,312 with a local county match of $94,948. At the same time, again, we are applying for the Traveler's Aid grant, which is a $5,000 grant, $2,500 match. Again, the program is to hear the public, and once we hear comments, we would ask the board to do a resolution to allow us to apply for fiscal year 25. And of course, we're here for any questions. Myself and Mr. Terrain, who's the transit manager, can ask any kind of transit or questions or technical questions.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, I will now open the floor for a public hearing in order to allow citizens a chance to comment on the transportation needs for the 5311 Transportation Program. If anybody would like to speak in regards to this, now is your chance.
Elizabeth Longman again. I hope at some point in Harnett County that senior citizens who don't want to drive to go to the grocery store, to go have a cup of coffee with a friend, they'd be able to step out of their house and in 3 to 5 minutes have a bus pick them up. We definitely have the populations to support a regular line bus system right now in Hornet. Maybe, even 10 years ago we didn't, but now we definitely do. I'd love to see a day when my special needs son wants to go, because in Cary he can do this. He can get on the bus, like step out, get on the bus in Cary, tell the bus driver, hey, I'm going to McDonald's. And the bus driver will make sure he connects, because it was just one connection. The bus is on and then one connection to McDonald's. And he'd get to McDonald's and get a Coke, have a burger, and just, do whatever and come back by himself. Harnett County, after a certain loss of ability, you have no life unless somebody can come and pick you up and take you somewhere. You have you lose your independence. You're an 80-year-old couple. You just don't want to drive, but you want to be part of society. Unless you're driving yourself there, Harnett doesn't provide for that life. It provides for those who want to sleep here and go work elsewhere. It would be nice if public transportation in Harnett could evolve to regular line bus systems that people who may not necessarily want to be driving all the time could access that system and continue in their pursuit of happiness on this earth. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anybody else like to speak in regards to the public hearing?
Yes, my name is Alan Longman. We talked about transportation with the last bunch of commissioners that were here. It's important to get the buses reliable and transportation reliable in Harnett, and they are not. It needs to be an easier system in which people can call up and get their appointments done. If you want to treat people for problems with drugs, you can forget it if you don't have public transportation that is reliably able to get them to treatment on time. If they're not on time, they get dropped and their lives are over. And the main problem is you haven't addressed that part of doing your drug programs, and better transportation will help Campbell students stay here, because the cost of them paying off their student loan and working as apprentices or whatever in the local community, which helps the county, is dependent on public transportation to get them back and forth because cars are too expensive. Thank you.
Sir. Would anybody else like to speak in regards to this? Seeing nobody move, ma'am, were you okay? All right. Seeing nobody move, I'm going to go ahead and close the floor for the public hearing at this time, and I'll also entertain a motion to adopt a resolution to apply for the Public Transportation Fund.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second in order to approve resolution for permission to apply for the Public Transportation Program funding. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously, Madam Clerk.
Thank you,
sir.
Chair, Board. Thank you very much.
Okay. At this time, I will now open up a public input session for the proposed opioid task force strategic plan. Mr. Coley Price, you kick us off, please, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. Hope everybody's doing well today. So I'm going to give a very brief summary since we had such a really good workshop last week about the explanation of where we're at, what's happening with our strategic plan. I really appreciate everybody coming out and speaking tonight. And there'll be opportunities where you can get involved. So if you'll just bear with me for just a few minutes, let me kind of go through this, and then we'll open it back up for anybody else who would like public input about the task force strategic plan. They wouldn't give me the clicker. Sorry. I said I talked too long last week. Okay, so here are our partners. Obviously, that list is going to grow. We've been doing this a little over a year now, so we're very excited about the collaborative efforts that have happened with the partnerships that you see on the screen. And then the strategic plan is at the back of the room.
Excuse me, hold on, please. Can you maintain order, please, back here? It's kind of hard to hear going on. Thank you very much. Please
So
proceed, sir.
Oh, thank you. So the strategic plan is at the back of the room. If anybody would like a copy, it is also online at www.harnett.org. So if you'd like a copy of that, feel free to get one. Let me talk just a little bit about the meat of this and how this came about as far as the settlement dollars that were done. We kind of partnered with Campbell University. Dr. David Tillman, I'd like to give kudos to for helping author this and putting this together. And it is the SOLVE approach. And you mentioned stigma, and you are exactly right. So stigma is reduced. We commit to addressing life-threatening community stigma that acts as a barrier to treatment and recovery. We totally understand that, and we respect where that's coming from and the comments that we are hearing. The O is for ownership, is shared. We commit to addressing this epidemic collectively and using all of our resources and all of our systems to care for all of our people. The L is learning, is continuous. We commit to ongoing work to understand best practices, to learn from latest research, and to evaluate our own efforts. The V, our values, are foundational. We commit to cultivating responses rooted in the shared values of our community, including faith-based groups. And E is equity, is centered. We commit to comprehensive action that works to ensure the needs of all groups within our community are being addressed. And then you see the three main goals proposed for the strategic plan. Goal number 1 is prevent harm, substance use. Goal number 2 is support treatment and recovery. Goal number 3 is to reduce harm. So that's kind of the meat of where we're at as far as what you see in the plan. That is at the back of the room or online that you can take a look at. And so these are just a few of the goals that we've accomplished without even the plan moving forward, because things have been working really well as far as where we've been with different initiatives that we've formed with our counterparts as far as the organizations that are helping move this particular strategic plan forward. Goal number 1, Harnett County Schools has already hired a clinical social worker. That happened just a few months ago, so I appreciate their support in helping with that. Goal number 2, the Sheriff's Office initiated phase 1 of the MOUD in the jail system. And then our community paramedic started in August, which has been a tremendous asset for Harnett County. And then goal 3, Harnett County Health Department began distributing free Narcan kits. That just happened here shortly, a few weeks ago. Here you see the task force, simplified timeline. All this started in April of 22 with the settlement dollars from the Attorney General's office as far as what North Carolina received. Our first official task force meeting was a year ago last Tuesday. So we have come a long ways in the last year as far as putting this together and going on a listening tour. We began our Reaching Rural initiative, which we were very fortunate to be a part of. One of only 8 counties in the United States that were part of this leadership Reaching Rural initiative to help combat opioid in rural areas. We've had presentations by Campbell University, Dr. Agnello, understanding the good, bad, and ugly of the opioid epidemic. Then we've had Dr. Tillman bring his students into collecting data and looking at other avenues as far as putting this together for this plan. I mentioned the community clinical social worker in the school, the jail reentry navigators being advertised, and the interviews are starting this week for Harnett County. And then our first payment was received in the summer of 22. The opioid task force meetings continue on a regular basis. And then the exercises and the priorities as far as how this strategic plan unfolds as far as the data that was collected and the continued efforts that we've had throughout the community. I mentioned the phase 1 of MOUD in the jail and then the Narcan distribution as well. These are just other timelines with the numerous meetings and collaborative efforts that we have formed over the past year. You can kind of look through that and kind of see where we've come from and how far we've been for the last year. This continues on and on each month as far as what's happened with the different presentations, with the different folks we are meeting with Reaching Rural across this nation, and what we're doing throughout Harnett County. As you can see, each month there's numerous things that have happened. Chris Appel, our senior staff attorney, and Jeff Armstrong, our captain with the Sheriff's Department, were able to go on a national level that you see in Austin, Texas, and sit on a panel for the opioid epidemic in rural America. And we have collaborated with other counties around North Carolina as well to see what they're doing in their efforts to combat this problem. So moving forward, where are we at? What's going on? What's about to happen? Obviously, another public input session is tonight. We had one May 15th as well to listen to the citizens of our county to see what they're thinking and feeling. There will be another opioid task force meeting on October 19th. This particular draft plan has already been presented to them. They have that, making their comments on it as well. That is something that we'll take into account. And then we would like to request adoption by the Board of Commissioners if you are comfortable with what you're seeing, probably around your November meeting. That's totally your call. And then the opioid task force is splitting into three subcommittees, as I mentioned: prevention and education, treatment and recovery, and harm reduction. We don't hope to hear back. We heard today from the Building Bridges Initiative, and we got accepted to that. So kudos to Harnett County for that. You've had a Reaching Rule initiative that we've been a part of, and now the Building Bridges of MOUD is going to be kicked off as well in October. So there'll be 5 individuals that'll go for that. Brent just got the letter today, so we're excited about that opportunity. So that just brings more collaborative efforts across the national standpoint. And then the final Reaching Rule site visit and presentation will be in Loudoun County, Virginia, December 5th through the 9th. That was a year-long initiative that ends in that particular month. We're excited about that. We appreciate all the efforts and the opportunities we've had to learn more about leadership and what's going on in rural America. And then seeking grant opportunities to fuel strategic planning priorities. I've mentioned that numerous times about the settlement dollars are going to do one thing, and then we're going after all kinds of grants through these initiatives we've been in to help fill the gaps for this particular strategic plan. That's what you're going to see as a primary, secondary, and tertiary approach with the low-hanging fruit and working our way up the tree. You have 17 priorities in this particular plan, and they're each defined and clearly defined about how they'll be carried out through quarters over the next few years. And quarterly updates on the opioid task force and strategic plan will be brought back to the Board of Commissioners on a quarterly basis. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's what I have as a brief explanation of the strategic plan. I really appreciate everybody coming and speaking. It's well documented about what you said, where you're coming from, and we hear you loud and clear. And just open it up for more comment if anybody has anything they'd like to share. And thank you for your support.
Thank you, sir. Does staff have any questions or comments before we go ahead and get started with the public input session? Okay, this time I will go ahead and open the floor for a public input session regarding the opioid task force strategic plan. Go ahead, Mr. Reeves.
Yeah, Jerry Rivas, Twin Ponds Road. I'm just curious as to how much this is costing. How much is the county ponying up? How much have they gotten in grants from the state and federal government? And what exactly is all this money being spent on? And I look at the Harnett County Opioid Task Force members, and I see 4 of the 5 commissioners named are here. But where's District Attorney Suzanne Matthews? Where's Sheriff Wayne Coates? Where's Captain Jeff Armstrong, Sheriff's Department? Is that him back there? No. Where's Major Aaron Meredith? Is he here? Where's Major Gary McNeil for the Sheriff's Department? Is he here? Are any of these people being paid out of this money? Is anybody on this list going to get paid for doing this, or are they doing this out of the goodness of their hearts? Anybody want to answer?
You want us to address that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. $0 have been spent. This is all volunteer time by everyone. We haven't spent a single dime of any of the settlement dollars on any of the administrative costs associated with this. Is purely us giving our time to this. So the settlement dollars will be used to tackle this issue. It's not to pay anyone who's a part of this.
Well, where are these people that are so interested, that are part of it? Shouldn't they be here? I would think. It's just ludicrous. It's just ludicrous to me. And like I said, until we, every one of the 50 states has a National Guard. And you got to ask yourself, what is the job of the National Guard? And I don't know. I'm not a over-educated man, but it seems to me their job is to guard the nation. Why do we have this flood of drugs coming across the border and into our ports, and we have the National Guard doing nothing? You got a problem with the southern border in Texas, Arizona, California? Put a machine gun every 50 yards. That's one way to stop it. And it's amazing. All these poor people want the American dream. They're the fattest poor people I've ever seen walking across the borders in these caravans. How does a 300-pound woman who is destitute and poor and downtrodden have an iPhone and Nike sneakers and weighs 300 pounds? Somebody please explain this to me. Somebody besides that idiot in Washington, D.C., Joe Biden. What a joke. That's all. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Good. Ma'am?
I didn't catch your name. I'm very sorry. Yeah.
So I'm Coley Price, Deputy County Manager.
I just got a fast question. How many people on the task force have walked in our shoes?
Very good question. I actually appreciate you bringing that up. There is one that I know, there may be two.
Okay, 'cause we're right here.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen next. There's three strategic plans that you see here on the right. They're breaking out into subcommittees. So I think Allie got your contact.
Okay.
So we would love for y'all
Yeah,
to be a
that's
part
what I
of
was just
that.
curious. I was just
Walking in your
curious.
shoes, we are listening very
Yes,
good.
thank you.
Thank you for that.
Good evening again, Jeremy Bradford. Just a couple quick things. One, sir, I appreciate the way you've worked through this. And again, I'm not here to point fingers. Trust me, I don't want to be here. I never wanted to be here. And the perspective that my wife and I have gained over the last 17 months is something I would not wish upon anybody, but we are here. And so we want to help. One of the things that I would point out as we talk about, I think it was on the 5th of September, the local Harnett County Health Department started distributing Narcan. On August 9th, I had a conversation with the health department, and I was told that was occurring and that my organization, my nonprofit, would be notified when that comes about. So I find it kind of shocking that here we are, 30 days later, I find out today at this meeting that we've actually implemented that. My organization, our nonprofit organization, has been doing numerous outreach things, not only in Harnett County, but in Cumberland County, in Moore County, in Wake County, and so forth. So I would just say that I would ask that we go back and look at that, because one of the things that I've dedicated myself to, I recently retired from the United States military. My wife and I both served in the military. Just like she was talking about, our son wasn't an addict. Our son made a piss poor decision, excuse my language, while he was at college. And he thought he was getting something from a friend to take the ease off. And it was laced with 12 nanograms of fentanyl, enough to kill him and all of his roommates. He wasn't an addict. He rolled the dice. He played Russian roulette. So I would just ask that we look at that, because I will tell you, as a concerned citizen and as a member of an organization that's trying to do change in our community, I've been on a quest to figure out how I can get Narcan. We have raised numerous amounts of money here in the local community for our organization. And one of the things that we just want to do is, hey, am I able to even buy it? And I will tell you right now, task force, that it is easier for me to walk out of this building right now and go get fentanyl, cocaine, whatever it is, than to go get Narcan for the average citizen. My wife and I are blessed that we're both retired military, so I can go right on post right now and I can get it every single day if I needed to. Fortunately, I don't need that, but there's got to be a better way. And I'm telling you right now, there's people like ourselves that I'm going to the county. I've physically gone over there, and so I'm kind of shocked to find out here tonight that we're actually distributing it. But again, kudos. One thing I would like to state for the record, and again, a lot of people don't know this, but Harnett County, our DA and our sheriff are actually leading the way in this state, because our DA has the highest prosecution rate of the death by distribution law that has been on our state law since 2019. Harnett County does. And what is sad is I'm a Harnett County resident, and my wife and I have had this conversation. We are Harnett County residents, and our son died at college in New Hanover County. Our sheriff's department and our DA, we talk about, we wish that Alex had passed away here in Harnett County. If it had been at home, we wouldn't still be fighting for justice, because there's a lot of DAs in our state that do not have the intestinal fortitude that our DA does and is actually going out there and attempting to make a difference. Is she 100%? No, but she's putting forth a heck of an effort. And so I would just like to recognize that she is doing her part. The last thing I'd like to say is, the timing. I like us all to think back to, if you can remember, September 12th, 2001. Remember how we were as a country. Remember how we were, how united we were. And so I think what a lot of people have forgotten, as my wife and I have gone overseas multiple times after that fateful day, but we have the equivalent of a 9/11 terrorist attack happening every 2 weeks because of fentanyl. Let's put it into perspective like that. Look what we did on September 12th. Look how we became united and how we went after to the ends of the earth to ensure that it was eradicated. And we're still doing it today. And so, while again, I'm not taking anything away from 9/11, but I would like us to think about how united we were on a common bond for the 2,000, almost 3,000 souls that were lost that day. And we've lost over 100,000 souls to this. In North Carolina alone, we lost just over 3,600 North Carolinians this last year, and it's rising. It's continuing to rise. That is the equivalent across the United States of a 9/11 attack every 2 weeks. That's what we're up against. So let's be united, and let's make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. My name is Teresa Mathewson. I live at 1345 Murchison Town Road, Stanford address, but it's Harnett County. Olivia. My son was another one who was not a drug addict. Not that I think that should make a difference, but my son, again, asked a friend for a pain pill, and he died from 27.9 nanograms of fentanyl, pure fentanyl. We've been blessed. Detective Weaver of the Harnett County Sheriff's Department, Amy Phillips at the DA's office, they have been phenomenal on working to arrest the individual who killed my son. He's in jail now on a charge of death by distribution and on 3 felony drug charges that he was picked up on under the warrant. Jeremy made a really fantastic point that it is way easier anywhere in North Carolina, but as we've discovered in the last year, to get drugs than it is to get Narcan. And there's lots of parents who don't even know still what Narcan is, how to use it, what its purpose is for, and so I'm sure their children don't either. Mine didn't, we didn't, and my husband's a nurse. And there's a lot of children, like our family, we didn't access the public school system of Harnett County. We were homeschoolers, and I know many people who are. So accessing those children is another component of this that I want to make sure we don't miss, because they're not in the public school system. They're not going to go to those assemblies unless they're getting it at church, youth groups, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts. They're not going to get that information. I have a grandson who, at 12 years old, they had vapes and drugs in his middle school. He came home and told us about it very nonchalantly, as if it was an everyday thing. Needless to say, we were horrified. And I don't want to see other families have to do this. And I also think a really good point was made. We're here. We're here, and we're here to help in any way that we can, so nobody else goes through what we went through. One of my biggest issues with this, though, is using the word overdose, because if someone gets fentanyl, they've been poisoned. I don't know of anyone who's ever asked specifically for fentanyl. I've never come across anyone who's told me that their child was a fentanyl addict. And so it's a poison. They're being poisoned. It's intentional. And maybe not at the local dealer who hands them a pill, but somewhere up the line, somebody knows they put it in there. So we have to start talking about it differently. We have to look at that portion of it a little bit differently. Because if we're going to talk about removing stigma, that's a big part of that, I think, is how we name things. And how we access Narcan is the other really, really big issue on this. And my last kind of comment on this would be that unfortunately this does happen. It's happened to many of us in this room, but we're left with someone comes in, and if it happens at your home, as I can attest to, someone comes in with EMS and the sheriff's and then the coroner's office, and your loved one is gone, and you're standing on the doorstep, and you don't have a card, you don't have a name, you don't have a number, you don't know what to do, who to turn to, where to get help, information, and you're stuck trying to figure it out on your own. We're again, very lucky with Detective Weaver. I called him weekly, and he helped us kind of try to navigate some of that. But I also know that many people have not had that experience, and they get told, we don't know where to send you. We don't know what to tell you. You'll just have to wait. I think we need to have some sort of advocacy, some sort of information for the families that are impacted, whether it's by an accidental poisoning that they survive or not. And I think that's a part that I didn't see anywhere in here that's missing, is that advocacy, not only before, but also after for our families, because how can we help one another if we don't know what to do? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Adrienne Bell, and I'm just hearing about both of these groups here. And I don't know, is there a way they can reach out to the Black communities? Because I didn't see but 2 Black people on that list that I knew, and that was Tony and Reverend Hinton. But it's the first time I heard it, and I know I be out to different meetings, but I never heard of none of this going on. These 2 groups, this group here or this group. And I want to know, is it a way y'all can reach our communities too?
Not one person. So I will just tell you, so we have had, so again, Melissa Bradford, 137 Heather Spring Way. We started an organization to out rally, and we do not discriminate. You will find us at opening day for Western Harnett Youth. You will find us at Western Harnett High School. You will find us at Overland Hills High School in a couple weeks. You will find us sitting the baseball field by the concession stands, getting our message out. We about a month or so ago, we were down at Highland Presbyterian Church in Fayetteville. That they have a program for at-risk youth. They bring them in. They play basketball with them, they feed them, and they teach them good stuff about being a citizen. And so we had the privilege to speak with them, all African Americans. We may look like a group, but the only thing that brings us together is we have all lost our child. We're actually not an organization. But we are happy to help link whoever with that right organization. And I think what you've laid out in here is amazing. In Q4, having Narcan in every school, that's a huge win. That is a huge win, because even if it's not happening in our schools right now, it's going to. It for sure will. And if we have it there and the teachers have it, they're going to start talking about it. Because while my son didn't die at Western Harnett High School, he was exposed to stuff at Western Harnett High School. And the 1 week of curriculum that we have for freshman PE about drugs isn't sufficient. And I know this is going to help tackle some of that, so that's awesome. But right now, we're doing a disservice to our children by talking to them one time for a week in the 4 years they're in high school about it. So thank you for all of your work here, and I look forward to partnering with you and everybody on this side of the room.
Hello, my name is Alan Longman. I've been doing this for 24 years. When nobody was doing this in New York and Pennsylvania, starting up to get rid of the DARE program. This is why I don't like law enforcement taking over the drug treatment. It has a history of not working. You had the Rockefeller laws passed for law enforcement. You had the DARE program, which was a miserable failure. And when people went to look at the statistics, they were supporting their success, not their failures. Outside people came out and did a study and found out a dismal failure for DARE. It took decades for it to be unraveled and other useful programs put in its place to help the kids and people around. And this is why I want to see professionals that are doing this that are held accountable. Where is North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition in this? They have the Narcan. I know they had the Narcan. They supplied it to me. I've had to pull people off the side of the road I found laying there and give them injections until they got up and walked away. 7 times in 1 year. The point is, it's common. These people actually came out of jail. They were dropped on 87. And that's where I found them. Someone came, gave them the drug they need. As soon as they got out, boom, it hit them hard. They were out, laying on the side of the road. 7. Not even looking or trying. That's where they were. The point is, if you want to actually handle this program, some of this stuff doesn't work. Why? The main reason why people do not able to understand that they have a drug problem is that their brain has what they call sloping. You have this with drug addicts, but you also have this with alcoholics. After years of taking it, or many times taking other substance abuse, it makes the brain slope away from the executive areas of the brain that make decisions. That is why they can't go and make these decisions easily. It takes something like 2 years to recover. And this is done by imaging. It's been done for years. They knew this. So what you need to show the kids in school is, hey, look, this is your brain when you take these drugs, and this is the rate of recovery in 2 years after not taking it. And they get to see that after they get high, it's not them getting high that's the problem. The drug is still affecting their brain months later. And the more they do this, the worse it is to recover. People on meth hardly recover at all. Their brain damage is almost permanent. So when you're talking about handling the drug problem, I like to see programs that reach out to the people better. 1, I want statistics held by the outside. I want statistics not held by the sheriff's department. Why? Historically, it's not been any good. You have 40 years of failure. And it's being done in other areas with help of police forces. This problem has already been handled in some states very well. Although the battle with fentanyl makes it much worse, it is able to handle this problem by giving out Narcan. I gave out Narcan and saved these people on the side of the road. Why is it so hard to get Narcan? Why can't the police have Narcan? Why, when you come out of prison, you don't have a buddy system in which someone that knows that person and hangs out with them has Narcan to save them? I heard rumors that the police did not want to give out Narcan. They said, what number of times did we save these people? They wanted to cut it down to 3. 3. $45 a piece. This person's life isn't worth $150. I want an oversight on what you're doing because I think it's necessary. If you're talking about really doing something, it's not possible if legislature does not expand Medicaid. Because how are you going to pay for this? You get 3 treatments, it's not enough for people to return. It takes time for the brain to recover, and it takes almost 2 years. The other problem is you don't have proper transportation. They're supposed to be going court-ordered, whatever, to be on time, or they get dropped. If they're 5 minutes late, they get dropped. That's it, they're out of the program. That includes veterans. If you don't have a transportation system that's going to get them there on time, and you can't rely on their parents or their friends for sure to get them there, you need transportation that's geared to get these people to those treatments on time. It has to be a timely manner. If you don't have expand and Medicaid in the legislature, you can't handle the drug problem. 95% of people do not get treatment because they can't get the transportation there and they can't get coverage for more than 3 visits. That's it. And those 2 things need to be taken care of if you're serious about taking the drug problem. You need to go to the schools and show them, like I said, the effects of the brain. Name of the guy is Dr. Steve Dewey. He was the head of Feinstein Institute and also Brookhaven Labs before that. And he brought out the imaging in which they go by today to check and see how people's brains react and what is the chemistry of the nervous system. They have a lot of things going on that they could do. There is drugs that they can help them get over some of the problems with the sloping. And it needs to be addressed. They're not given. You don't give these drugs out. It's too expensive. So what I'm saying is that I like to see accountability for the records and statistics being held from outside the group that's doing it for Harnett County. There are other counties that have gotten very far, and places in Europe that have gotten very far in helping the treatment of these kids and these people. You need to look at other situations. I'm glad you're using Campbell. I'm glad you're using the things going on now to get it started here in Harnett. But I also know it's a very hard job and has to be done right. And I have questions about certain people who are in charge that really don't know. They're knowing now, they're learning, but I'm just disturbed to see that there's certain programs that have been proven not to work well. You have to get these major things done first before you have a program. And the people operating have to have some sort of education. You know, I was an administrator. I was a technology person. I spent my retirement, because I believed in this so much, to go to college and get 4 degrees in the areas of psychology and sociology in order to do this work. It's not a money thing to me. I remember all the dead bodies, the young kids that cry and die, tell you their dreams, how to reach them, and you knew some of them weren't going to make it. You knew which ones were going to die. And I sat there and said something had to be done with it. 24 years ago, the schools didn't want to listen. The community didn't want to listen. It ruined their land values when you started bringing up problems with the kids with the drugs. They didn't want that to affect the land values. The school system didn't want you to be involved in this project 24 years ago. Their organization is called PUSH, People United to Stop Heroin. Back then it was heroin. But then it grew into fentanyl. Fentanyl is unforgiving. People die from that, and there needs to be better monitoring of this and better hospitalization for people to detox. People need to be trusted immediately, and your law enforcement is your first main cause of doing it. They have to sit there and give the medicine, the Narcan, to the people that need it when you find them. And I don't see that being done. Why am I picking up bodies all over the place? I don't even look for them. I just drive by and see a body laying on the side of the road. I give them my Narcan. How come I have Narcan? The people in families who have kids should have Narcan. And when I was working with North Carolina Harm Reduction, I got that. I got everything I needed to help the kids and the people. When they came out of prison, when they had their friends, I visited them. And I gave them the Narcan to their friends so they had it on hand in case they went under or they started to die. And it saved many, many lives. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak?
Catherine Haymore. This problem, I believe, has much deeper roots. I've been in houses out in the country where the only book in the house was a Bible. My house has always been just overflowing with books. I was in a bookstore the other day that exchanges books. You take some in, if they want them, they buy them, or they give you credit and you can buy books with them. But they used to have a box or a table full of books that they didn't want and the people didn't want to take back home. And I asked them why they didn't have that box anymore, and they said, "We don't have room for it. If the people leave the books they don't want, we send them to a recycler who shreds them, and they turn them into whatever old books are good for." And I was appalled. I think the problems lie way back in the childhood of the children and in the childhood of their parents. Their parents don't seem to care that their children don't read. I used to give my children books for Christmas. And one of my sons graduated from University of South Carolina with a degree in history. Of course, now he's driving a truck, but it probably pays more than teaching anyway. But the children are not getting good upbringing, in my opinion. They're not being directed to what they might like. One of my sons got interested in astronomy. I gave him Asimov on astronomy, and I kept feeding him science books. One of my daughter, she read off and on, but she saw books around her. She now works at Sharon Harris and has a good job along with her husband. They're not directed. At a young age, I started writing poetry, and I've been published. I don't have any books out, but maybe. I kept doing that, and I kept notebooks. I never went anywhere without a notebook. I have one with me tonight. But children aren't encouraged to seek a specific subject or interest unless it's sports. And I hear that there's a lot of drug abuse in rural America, more than possibly cities, and much more in this state, apparently. What is wrong with these parents that are raising children that have no aspirations, no direction? They seem to be just kind of out there with nothing, no guidance. I remember years ago there was an epidemic of pregnancies, and when the schools or the whatevers wanted to give out condoms, oh my God, the uproar. We can't do that. I think some of these kids didn't even know where babies came from. But I do believe that the birth rate is down some because of giving them an alternative to just jumping in whatever together. Um, Maybe legalizing marijuana wouldn't be such a bad thing if kids had an alternative to an easy pill that maybe the Chinese are trying to uh, take us all out one at a time. I don't know. They're shipping it to Mexico or wherever, and then they bring it in. But it is inevitably it is coming from China, and that's where we need to cut it off from. But I think that the parents need more guidance on how to raise their children and how to direct them in specific quality endeavors. But some of the parents aren't any more educated than the children that they're raising. And that is just going to continue. And as far as transportation, there's two relatively large, if you can call them that, cities. Most of Harnett County is rural, and providing transportation for everybody seems just a bit impossible. I mean, there's only so much money to go around. And that's, I don't know, I don't have a good answer to that. But I do believe the children need more guidance when they're young.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'd like to just quickly comment on that. We have a family here, strong military background. Their children went to college. My husband and I have college degrees. My father has a PhD and a master's. He teaches, and he's a geologist. I have a double major and a degree in nursing, as well as in psychology, social work, and counseling. Our children were homeschooled, but they were held to a very high standard, and they could pass any test that any student in this county can. They did. We proved it. Their national scores were amazing. I think that is irrelevant to. I don't think I am, though. I don't think I am the exception. We see families who have a strong
Ma'am,
background.
excuse me here. We're not going to get into a debate here. We're going to actually, instead of battling each other, this is obviously an issue that is plaguing this whole country. And right now we're here in order to hopefully be a collaboration of minds together, in order to have some input, in order to get some distance and direction, in order to hopefully come together and take care of this. Now, I understand there may be some disagreements with some things said, but if we can please get this focused on an input for this, please.
The other piece that I wanted to mention was that we were talking about how to get to these kids. There is, on the internet, there is an amazing short video. It's in two parts, one for adults and one for children, and it's called Dead on Arrival. And it does speak to this epidemic, how it's affecting people and how to be aware. Unfortunately, we didn't find it until it was too late for our son. But I did want to share that so that if people wanted to look at it, it's out there.
Thank you so much.
Just wanted to, Elizabeth Longman, just wanted to speak on this. I just wanted to first say I hope the county commissioners took notice when a fellow citizen stood up and asked who is going to come out and talk with us, who's going to come out and reach out to us. The speed with which this side of the room ran to that lady. They surrounded her, they gave her cards. They came and said, "We're here, we will be there." Your task force didn't move. Just showing that we saw it. to. Mr. Coley stood up here and turned very confidently to this very important group of people and said, don't worry, there'll be opportunities for you to be part of this. Huh? Their children are in the grave. They're dead. You need to be part of that. They're already there. They have faced the worst outcome of drugs. They don't need an invitation from you to be part of anything. They're already there. Why you're not part of them is what we should be asking ourselves. I have said it before and before again. Appel and Coley were not the ones to lead this. Were not the ones. Their very pretty piece of paper means nothing to these guys who have been out here in the county. I've met the couple in the back out there. See that young lady there? She held her own sting operation to make sure the person who gave her brother the pills that killed him was arrested. She held that sting operation. It was not the sheriff's department. Okay? They're already there. They don't need your invitation. You need to join them. They're not starting out and learning. They're surviving the nightmare daily. Daily. We all get hit by this drug epidemic. We all have our personal stories. I took my son into the emergency department for an appendix removal. He was dead in 3 seconds. Thank God they brought him back 10 minutes later of working on him. He was dead. He wasn't like slowly fading away. He was dead. That's how fentanyl kills you. He just happened to be lucky to be in an ICU, emergency room department where the equipment was, less than 2 seconds away. That's how fast fentanyl kills you. You'll be dead. Please stop excluding the people in this board is full of positions. Some of you need to step down so some of them can be on it tonight. They know the gravitas they need to move with, the speed they need to be on the streets with solutions. They know. They don't have to think about it, mull it over, hold 6-party talks to make a solution happen. You hand those monies to them, I guarantee you will see movement in days, not years. If you've given these folks that money beginning of this year, whenever that money came into it, because the money has been here for years. This is not the first time it's here. It's been here. If they'd gotten it out to y'all and to your circle, what would you have done? Because I guarantee you, you know children who have died since your child. They don't. They didn't even know your child died. Okay? But hey, we have strategic plan that you will be invited to be part of one of these days.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak? Mr. Langley.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. Joe Langley with the Boys and Girls Club of Central Carolina. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Harnett County administrative staff for the excellent job they've done in preparing the Opioid Task Force strategic plan. Your diligent work shines a light on a problem that deeply affects our community and provides us a roadmap to address it effectively. Now let's talk about an issue that has been a persistent challenge in our community and indeed communities across the nation: harmful substance abuse and its life-threatening, life-altering consequences. Though a comprehensive response requires attention to prevention, treatment, and harm reduction, I wish to focus specifically on the initial and pivotal phase, which is prevention. The objective here is nothing less than a transformation of community-level systems. We are talking about implementing evidence-based programs, not just in the schools, but also in community centers and places of worship. The goal is simple yet powerful: to equip individuals, particularly our youth, with the knowledge and the skills needed to make informed decisions about substance abuse. This is not solely about distributing information. It's about promoting healthier coping mechanisms and building a sense of community and purpose. In the context of this daunting task, one organization stands out as a beacon of hope: the Boys and Girls Club of Central Carolina. This organization is far more than a sanctuary for our children. It is an incubator for healthy, informed, and responsible citizens of tomorrow. Through a range of developmental programs, the Boys and Girls Club raises awareness about the perils of substance misuse, offering alternative ways to deal with stress and emotional challenges. Most crucially, it provides a sense of community that serves as a potent antidote to the loneliness and aimlessness that can often lead to substance abuse. You might wonder, how effective is this approach? Does it offer a strong return on investment, especially when compared to the staggering financial and social costs of incarceration, opioid and substance abuse recovery, and even teen pregnancies? To answer these pressing questions and to share the remarkable achievement of the Boys and Girls Club of Central Carolina, it is my pleasure to introduce Sarah Womack, the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Central Carolina.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Womack. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Central Carolina. And I want to start out by thanking both sides of the room, everybody that's here this evening, because this is obviously a problem that's much bigger than any one person or any one task force can begin to tackle. And I've said this often, and in fact, I've said this in our room this evening: we are the solution to many of the things at the Boys and Girls Club. We are the solution that many of the issues that teens and youth are facing, but we're only one solution. There needs to be a multitude of solutions to affect change in a very multifaceted problem. But for us specifically, we do have a very scientific approach to how we address the opioid crisis, how we address ongoing abuse of alcohol and drugs. And it starts with the program we call Smart Moves. And Smart Moves is a data-driven program that has been running successfully throughout the Boys and Girls Club movement nationwide, a movement that's over 100 years old. It's data-driven, it's data-proven. The thing that's wonderful about this program is that it's run by our staff, and our staff have invested in the lives of youth and have become trusted adults that are helping our kids see that there's a bright future ahead. Our program, because it's built on trust with our staff, gives kids a safe place to ask questions and to start to tear down those stigmas that so many of you spoke about. And I think it's important that our kids be able to ask, could I die with just one pill? Absolutely. I didn't know that growing up. I had no idea. I was a product of the DARE program. I had no idea one pill could kill me. I think it's important that our kids be able to ask, can I become addicted to a prescription medicine that was prescribed to me by my doctor? Absolutely. I was a former college athlete, and on 3 separate occasions, I was prescribed high-powered painkillers that I could easily be addicted to right now. This morning, I ate breakfast in your McDonald's across the way over here, and I thought about the fact that the last time I was in that McDonald's was about 25 years ago. And it was our tradition as middle school students on the bus ride back to Lee County where we played sports. We'd be over here in Harnett to play an athletic competition, and we'd be on our way back and we'd stop in McDonald's. And 25 years ago, there were 8 of my classmates, teammates, and friends that are not with us today because they were victims of the opioid crisis. The Boys and Girls Club really serves an at-risk population by and large, but this crisis is a lot bigger than just the at-risk population. The kids I'm talking about went on to college. They graduated, some of them with honors. They played sports. They were on athletic scholarships. They were on academic scholarships. They came from great homes and they had great parents. But they were still victims of this crisis. So it's not just one solution, it's many solutions that we're looking for. And the Boys and Girls Club, I believe, is one of the solutions, and specifically a solution that could help target communities that don't have as much support, to give kids hope for a great future, to help them avoid the one pill that could kill them. So as this task force begins to think about what might be next and who might be a recipient of this multi-year funding, I would just ask for your consideration because we'll be part of the multi-year solution. Thank you so much.
Would anybody else like to speak in regards to this? I think we may have touched everybody already now.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us talk.
Of course, we definitely need the input because this is much bigger than just each one of us. So thank you all for the input that y'all did have. So at this time, I'm now going to close the floor for the public input for the opioid task force. And at this time, I will also ask Mr. Trout for the county manager's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The first item I have tonight is I want to ask Stephen Barrington to please stand. Stephen is joining us as our Economic Development Director. He started today and already working hard at moving our county forward. So thank you, Stephen. Wanted to advise the board that at the next work session, we will have one item that will require action. We'll be adding it. We had the opportunity that there's some funding that's come available that allow us to do some studying as it relates to Harnett Regional Water and PFAS, be able to look at how we will treat our water and whether the system that we're looking at to treat our water regarding PFAS, it will be effective, and there's funding that will allow us to run that, those tests. And so we'll have that on the agenda. Steve Ward will be here to explain it, and so you'll have items in your packet and then information, but they have a deadline of submitting the application before the end of September, so that's why we need to take the action at our work session, but wanted to make you aware of that. Last item I have is need a motion to approve budget amendments. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve budget amendments as requested by the finance director. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously, Madam Clerk. Does that conclude your report, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. Here, under new business, we have an item to discuss and consider an approval of a letter of support for the Sandhills Center and East Point merger. I will go ahead and take the lead on this one. Do we not have the proposed letter attached? Do we not?
I do not.
Okay. So currently there are 6 LME MCOs in the state, and I guess it's been kicked around for the past 5-6 months or so about the state trying to limit those down to 4 total. So currently, Sandhills Center and East Point have had a volunteer merger with one another, and they have actually come up with a resolution, and it is up on the secretary's desk right now, and it is waiting for him to be signed. And this letter of support would just be from our board in order to, since we are part of Sandhills Center, that we would agree and support the merger between East Point and Sandhills. And that will bring us to a total of I think it's 21 counties in one LME MCO, and it'll make us the second largest LMCO in the state. So hopefully they will not divide us up after that and split us up to where somewhere we wouldn't want to go. So, do I hear anything in regards to approval of the letter of support for the Sand Hills East Point merger?
Make a motion, we approve it. Second.
A motion and a second to approve a letter of support for the Sand Hills Center and East Point merger. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if I
sir.
may, I think the board can just express its concern on this because this issue was tied to the budget. So getting this forwarded back to those folks and to the speaker and the pro tem, probably time is of the essence. So Trout and I will talk about it, take care of that tomorrow.
Right, we'll take care of that quickly.
Right. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously, Madam Clerk. Do we have a need for closed session, sir?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Outstanding. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion and a second to adjourn. We're adjourned.